Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan, MS Pearce, Ukraine War News Update, the first part thereof for the 18th of January 2025. We'll start with the Ukrainian General Staff figures for the Russian losses for the day before, all the usual caveats apply of course, and you can find those caveats in the description to the video below. We have lower numbers in a number of categories, and I wonder, well, Tim White says fewer losses suffered in the previous 24 hours. Fighting was less intense in a few areas of the front line. This is possibly due to rotation, but I cannot be sure. No tanks and relatively low numbers of invaders destroyed compared to the last 3 months, according to the Ukrainian estimate. So 1,340 is still above that 1,300 mark, so it's a massively high number. But it is less than we have seen. 1,700s, then dropping to sort of 1,500s, now 1,300s. 13 troop-carrying AFVs after no tanks. That's both of those obviously below the daily average. 21 artillery systems is about the daily average. 69 vehicles and fuel tanks is fairly high, but we have seen some staggering numbers in that category recently, like well over 100 and even 200. So, yeah, interesting that the numbers have dropped, but still some significant personnel losses for the Russians. Now, the ISW, the Institute for the Study of War, American military think tank, reports that all 12,000 North Korean troops in Kursk may be lost by April 2025. Since escalating to significant combat operations in December, North Koreans have experienced substantial losses, averaging 92 casualties daily. So they could all be exhausted by April. That would be phenomenal. But given that there is a security arrangement between North Korea and Russia, and indeed there's one that's just been signed between Iran and Russia, and don't know what that entails, but this one entails a Article 5 type binding agreement whereby North Korea can send, I don't know if they have to send, but they can send troops to support Russia if Russia is invaded, and that's what they are doing. So we may see more. There have been talks about there being more North Koreans available for Ukraine for Russia to get hold of, but it will probably cost the Russians to continue to do so. The Kyiv Independent reports that Ukraine's newly formed brigades face devastating losses as poor leadership, inadequate training and mismatched foreign support hinder their effectiveness on the battlefield. And that's written by Serhiy Filmonov, commander of the Ukrainian military's 108th Separate Mechanized Battalion, in his recent op-ed. So that is going to be fairly damaging for Ukraine's PR. Flaws in Ukraine's new brigades and foreign training programs. There has been this move now this move towards getting training involving or new brigades not being formed, and actually battalions being formed that are going to support existing units. So they reinforce them rather than starting new brigades that then get butchered, both literally and metaphorically, in being taken into constituent parts and thrown at different areas of the front line. Well, you might as well just already start with units being, as Thomas Tyner stated recently, sort of marching battalions, as they were known in other countries. Marching battalions that can then, they don't have a particular designation, they can then be attached to other units and taken on by them. But also training needs to be looked at. We've heard so often about the old Soviet mindset and issues of the idea that people that go into leadership in the armed forces have traditionally been thought to be corrupt. The whole kind of move on up into hierarchical leadership is it works in tandem with what did in decades past under the Soviet Union work in tandem with corruption, and we've seen that in the Russian army. This is possibly a legacy that's been a problem for the Ukrainians. I was speaking to James from YN Ukraine, who himself is now operating in a unit. He says is actually his unit is full of decent people doing a good job, but there are issues in the command hierarchy in Ukraine that he says are definitely a problem that need to be looked at. Moving on to distance strikes. Ukraine says, and it was a pretty heavy night for both sides really. Ukraine said they intercepted 2 out of 4 ballistic missiles that were fired into Ukraine. Either North Korean or Iskander-M type ballistic missiles. 2 of these were shot down in Kiev, but they still killed people. One of them, I think, was shot down very close to the ground, to its target, and therefore necessarily is going to just spread all sorts of debris over the city below, and that's going to cause quite a lot of devastation. 24 out of 39 drones that were fired were shot down, and 14 were decoys. 1 did get through. Consequences of the Russian attack: 4 dead in Kiev. Actually, that's now raised to 5. 3 injured. A water main has been burst, and that's caused a sort of river down one of the roads at the strike site, and damage reported to Lukyanivska metro station. In Zaporizhia, a missile hit the city centre, partially destroying an administrative building, an industrial site, and a cathedral. 6 were injured in Zaporizhia. So issues, I think that might be a car on fire there. There you can see a cathedral's been really badly damaged. Obviously cultural degradation there. I don't know if someone was burnt alive in a car in Kiev. Actually, might have happened. Single drone that did escape air defense looks to have hit Pavlohrad in a Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. Quote: "There's destruction on the territory of an industrial enterprise. There was a fire there, which rescuers extinguished," says the head of the city there. So Zaporizhia here, I think. Oh no, this is Kiev. Russia has this morning attacked 2 cities in Ukraine straight to Kiev, then where, well, actually now 5 people are known to have been killed, and there's video footage of the McDonald's and a metro station that took the brunt of the destruction there. The Lukyanivska metro station is a building in the video above, and the first picture here, it's just 2 stops from the central Golden Gate station. Ukraine says 2 ballistic missiles were shot down, but the debris caused the damage and the deaths. In Zaporizhia, where the other attack took place, 8 people were known to have been wounded. 2 ballistic missiles were fired there, and these were not intercepted by air defense. So the damage in Zaporizhia was from direct hits. Damage in Kiev was from the debris from 2 that were intercepted. But obviously Kiev has much better air defenses, but what goes up must come down, especially when it's a ballistic missile that's coming down at a really steep trajectory and an incredible rate of knots. That is going to be very difficult to shoot down. And if you do shoot them down, bang, it's still going to fall down broadly around, you know, where it was targeting, especially if you're hitting it very close to its target, obviously. Anything else? Yeah, so number of injured has increased to 10, 8 of whom needed hospital. That's in Zaporizhia. Casualties are aged from 28 to 69 years old, and a woman aged 48 is in serious condition. Okay, then yesterday daytime, Kryvyi Rih was hit, which is, well, I suppose that's, if you're looking at the Dnipro River, sort of up and left, so northwest of there. Kryvyi Rih left, a strike left 3 dead and many injured following successful strikes on the energy infrastructure there. The powerless armed militants of the Russian Federation are targeting civilians in Ukraine, says War translated. And yeah, that's now 4 dead, I believe, there. And yeah, Anton Gerashenko said it is already known about 4 people killed in the Russian attack on Kryvyi Rih. A 22-year-old girl, men aged 34 and 56 were seriously wounded. The bodies are lying in cars and on the ground. People are saving their pets. Some of them are still covered in blood. Yeah, so some pretty horrible footage coming out from Kryvyi Rih. Yes, so Tim White talks about that death toll increasing to 5, and a woman who was critically injured lost her life in hospital eventually there. And it's worth reminding ourselves, you know, this is one of the people who died, putting a face to these people. This is Irina, 22 years old. She died in hospital overnight following the Russian missile attack on Kryvyi Rih. Initially, she survived the first explosion at her workplace and an educational institution. The Russians struck again and killed her cousin Alexei, 20, and his grandmother. Alyona, 61, near their apartment building. Russia killed 3 members of the same family. That's what Russia do. In terms of Ukraine, they've been targeting again overnight hydrocarbon energy infrastructure. Possibly another large wave of drone attacks, said Dmitry from War Translated last night as it was happening, on Russia is happening. Reports are from Tula and Saratov. So Saratov, Engels Air Base is in Saratov area. So this video is from Tula. And there are plenty of videos of really big fires erupting again from oil depots. That's from Tula. That one, those couple. Overnight, another oil depot was targeted by Ukrainian drones, says Null reports. A large oil depot with 58 fuel tanks near Uzlovaya in the Tula region was reportedly hit. So that has caused, really widespread glowing skies there in the nighttime. Also, Lyudinovo in the Kaluga region saw a massive fire at an oil refinery there. Yet another oil refinery has come under sanctions, says Dmitry again. A video report and local commentary are available, and you can see that, they hit after all, says this person, recording the huge fire that seems to have erupted there. And then earlier on in the video, they were talking about how, if we go back to that, I'm sure it's in this video, there's a bit more commentary to be seen. Maybe not. Maybe I'm just lying to you. Anyway, there you go. So a couple of really significant, here they go. They keep coming. One was just shot down. We hear them. So they keep coming. So there's multiple drones then hitting in Kaluga, it appears they hit after all. Yesterday evening, Ukrainian drones struck a facility in Kaluga, says no reports, reporting that same strike. Direct hit on an oil depot. He says depot there, not refinery, so I'm not 100% sure. The local governor confirms a fire broke out at the enterprise in Lyudinovo following the drone attack. That would make me think it's that kind of size of fire, would make me think it might well be an oil depot, those big tanks. So Tim White then sums up a reminder that early in the night, Ukraine had hit 2 more oil depots with drone attacks. So he's calling them both depots. These were in Kaluga and Tula. Russia says 46 drones were destroyed, 18 in Bryansk, but the Kremlin avoids mentioning the damage. And I don't know if there's anything else to add. No. So then when we come on to no reports, there's a couple of official releases now from the General Staff, it seems. So on the night of January the 18th, Ukrainian drones hit the 8 Marta depot in Tula, sparking a fire. This facility supplied Russian forces. Additionally, Ukrainian drones hit a Nebo SVU radar. So it's one of those big, very, very expensive radar. I'll remind you of the Nebo array, just to give you a sense. It's one of these big old bits of kit. I wonder what the cost is. About 394 million rubles. I don't know how much that is in dollars. That'd be useful to know. Let's see if Copilot lets us know. That's the Microsoft no Nebo cost. Oh no, yes we do. Nebo radar cost, sorry, I can't read my own writing. Nebo M radar system is quite advanced and expensive. Each unit costs over $100 million. So taking one of those out is going to be very good for Ukraine, not just in terms of capability, but cost to the Russians. And yeah, so that's been taken out in occupied Kherson and targeted and hit a Book 3 and S-300 system in Donetsk. So not only has the Tula Oblast seen some destruction of hydrocarbon infrastructure, but some really high-value air defense and radar equipment taken out as well. And then we also hear from the General Staff that Ukrainian Special Operations Forces struck a Rosneft fuel depot in Kaluga. On the night of January 18th, SOF units in coordination with other units successfully hit the depot in Lyudinovo. The facility is part of the Kaluga Neft product and serves as a logistics hub as well. So, very good news there. In fact, at the moment, there are, according to Firm's data, currently 4 different Russian oil depots burning. The depots in Engels and Lyski are still burning after previous drone attacks. The Engels one was sort of 11 days ago now, and that's been hit twice. It's still burning. And then Lyski was a pretty severe one now. Was it 3 nights ago? And the depots in Kaluga and Tula were attacked at night. They are obviously still burning there. Okay, moving on to other bits and pieces, but it is worth remembering or worth emphasizing that Ukraine has done a really good job over the last week or so in consistently hammering the Russian energy infrastructure, and that is going to be hurting. This is where they make the money, either from export, but also they need that fuel to fly their planes, to to allow their army to move. So this is going to have, I think, a significant effect if they can keep this pressure up. Another couple of weeks of doing that over and over, and Russia is going to be hurting. My goodness, I remember in the UK when we had, was it a strike where we had trucks going on strike and blocking oil depots in the UK and petrol, and everyone then rushes out and bought petrol, and it basically brings the country to a standstill. And that was just kind of like, okay, the UK is smaller, only 70 million people rather than 140 million in Russia, although there are claims that it's actually a lot fewer people living in Russia these days than is officially stated. Nonetheless, we were crippled quite easily, and that if you were attacking the UK, you could do quite a lot of damage quite easily. Blow up the M25, that circular motorway that goes around London. You're screwing the economy massively just with that, and then take out a few key oil refineries and facilities, and then bish bash bosh. So this is going to hurt Russia. There's no doubt about it going forward, and especially if Ukraine can keep up that pressure for months and months, but certainly for the next week or so. At some point this is going to hurt to you would hope it will force Russia to the negotiations with their tail between their legs rather than their ears up, thinking, we've taken all of this territory off the Ukrainians, look at how amazing we are. The Ukrainians can say, look, we can keep because don't just think negotiations are going to be about territory. It's like, well, you've got this territory of ours, we'd like that back, and Russia say, well, okay, we'll have Kursk back, but that's only going to get you a bit of Luhansk. So really, we're going to keep hold of most of these territories. Actually, Ukraine says, well, that's not good enough. I'll tell you what, we'll stop blowing up your oil refineries if you give us back all of the occupied territories. And if you don't, we are just going to keep going and keep going. And we will trip the crap out of your ability to make money. So this is like I've said before, the battlefield is the early part of the negotiating table. And the battlefield at the moment is massive, and it includes the entirety of Russia, because Ukraine are hammering Russia with drones and missiles. That's why I said for an awful long time, the thing that Ukraine needs to do is scale up its production of missiles and drones. I said that 2.5 years ago, 2 years ago, whenever it was. And do you know what? I think I'm somewhat vindicated because, they finally got here, and they are able to, I think, really hurt the Russians at the moment. It'd be really interesting. I'd love to be a fly on the wall in the Kremlin to see what the reports are and how it is, whether, how much these strikes are hurting Russia, on consistent days. Edwin Hunter Christie says, yesterday, a patrol craft, so this would have been 2 days ago, a patrol craft of the French Air Force, Atlantique 2, while flying in international airspace over the Baltic Sea, was subject to scrambling and also to radar lock-on by Russian air defence. The French defence minister has condemned this primitive act. France is contributing to NATO's Baltic Sentry operation, so this is the response to the ships in the Baltic Sea, particularly the Eagle S, that has severed those communication lines under the sea. So the Baltic Sentry operation is a NATO operation to, I guess, secure the sea and put a lot of onus on, or shine a lot of light on, the Russian ships that are sailing in the area. But yeah, so France is contributing to that collective response to Russia's hostile and illegal acts of sabotage in the region. Moscow seems to believe it can intimidate NATO and European states. This won't work. Either Russia shoots and then it'll get smacked down hard, or it doesn't, and it's a counterproductive provocation which will only strengthen resolve and preparations to counter Russia's actions. This is similar to what I've said previously, which is when Russia does overt, really obvious acts of sabotage. So, for example, incendiary devices in the DHL websites to blow up airplanes in Europe, in UK. You're like, okay, Russia's done that. That's just going to ramp up our not only political resolve, but also our public resolve against Russia. So when Russia do obvious things that make them look out to be the bad guys, it can only backfire on them. So when they start locking on to like French planes, that's only going to piss the French off more and increase their resolve to do something back against Russia. So sometimes I think these kind of provocations are really ill thought out from the Russians. I don't know. Let me know what you think. No reports, as I mentioned earlier, says Iran and Russia have signed a comprehensive strategic partnership agreement following a meeting between Putin and Pezeshkian. Russian media reports details of the deal remain unknown, but a similar agreement between Russia and North Korea previously led to DPRK troops fighting alongside Russian troops. I wonder whether this will be a military agreement rather analogous to that North Korean one, which is itself was a parallel of Article 5 of NATO. And we're going to leave you with, I suppose, good news. Well, bad news, but the idea that there are some good Russians. Tim White says, I didn't get a chance yesterday to post a full translation of the defiant words of the dissident Alexander Skobov. For those who say there are no good Russians, think again. Read the incredibly brave and inspiring last words of the historian as he's again sent to jail. He's a hero. So let's listen to the words of this Russian dissident. I was brought up in the Soviet Union with a conviction that when peaceful people are attacked by a malicious aggressor, one should take up arms and fight. And if you cannot hold a weapon, help those who are fighting and encourage others to do so. All my public activity is a call to fight the aggressor which attacked Ukraine, to support it with weapons and ammunition. I see myself as a participant in the armed resistance against the aggressor. This is my small contribution to the missiles and shells which destroy the invaders, and I take responsibility for each destroyed occupier. No one attacked Russia. No one threatened it. Putin's Nazi regime attacked Ukraine driven only by delusions of grandeur of its leaders and the inhuman thirst for power over everyone around them. They assert themselves by killing hundreds and thousands of people. They are bastards, Nazi scum. The guilt of Putin's Nazi dictatorship is preparing, unleashing and waging a war of aggression is obvious and needs no proof. Likewise, our right to armed resistance against the aggressor on the battlefield and in the rear needs no justification. Indeed, it would be ridiculous to expect such an acknowledgement from a regime that imprisons people merely for spoken condemnation of its aggression. All possibilities for legal protests against Putin's aggression have been destroyed. My calls for armed resistance are classified as terrorism. I will not argue with the aggressor's authorities, even if they decide to accuse me of paedophilia. The court in Russia has long proven itself to be an appendage of Nazi tyranny, and seeking justice from it is pointless. I will never bow before these people, scoundrels and accomplices of murderers. I have nothing to discuss with them. Let the guns speak for me. I see no point in arguing with the puppets of dictatorship about how they apply their laws. They are, in any case, the laws of a totalitarian state designed to suppress dissent. I do not recognise these laws and will not obey them, nor will I appeal against any decisions and actions of this Nazi regime. I do not seek mercy from my armed enemy. Putin's dictatorship can kill me, but it cannot make me abandon my fighting against it. Wherever I am, I will continue to call on honest Russians to join Ukraine's armed forces. I will continue to call for strikes on military targets deep inside Russia. I will call on the civilized world to inflict a strategic defeat on Nazi Russia. I will argue for the need to militarily destroy the regime of the new Hitler. Putin is a new Hitler, deranged by impunity, a bloodthirsty ghoul. And I will never tire of repeating, crush the serpent. Death to Putin, murderer, tyrant, and bastard. Death to the Russian fascist invaders. Glory to Ukraine. Wow. I mean, goodness me, those are strong words and not words you would expect a Russian to commit to paper, but there we have it. Really strong rhetoric from that Russian dissident that has, he's ended up jailed for his views. I guess rather unsurprisingly. Anyway, that's enough from me. Take care, guys, and speak to you soon. I'm going to do a sort of American geopolitical update because it's one that I've been brewing on for a couple of days. I just haven't had time. So some of it will be mentioning things that happened a couple of days ago. But I'm feeling a bit ranty today, and stuff that's happening in America is just blowing my mind at the moment, as I'm sure you can tell. I'm gonna let you know about it. So that's something to look forward to, right? Take care, guys. Speak to you soon. Toodle pips.